Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Wednesday, May 15th. We're embracing chaos somewhat and starting early instead of late. That's because I fell asleep early yet last night and then only slept for like 4 hours. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 here where I very well I'm either going to get extremely tired near the end or in the middle of the stream and want to fall asleep, or I don't start streaming until my normal time, at which point I possibly may have fall asleep again. Insomnia makes everything crazy and it never gets really fixed. Ideally we'd want to get these 2 daily quests done, maybe leave one to be re-rolled for Friday. Maybe not. We have a tavern brawl we also need to do here. We did get an update yesterday that says this Dalaran heist solo experience starts next week, opens in 1 week, so I assume that means Tuesday of next week, and then I imagine that means once every Tuesday we'll do a special short experience. I basically have enough gold to at least open 25 packs, if not closer to 30 or 40 packs when the new expansion happens, so or when the new expansion is done. So because of that, I've decided not to spend the extra effort to rebuild any of the decks, either on the main account or the European or Asian account, where frankly I probably should have rebuilt the decks for the European and the Asian account. Let's see, we're trying Druid and Hunter victories. See, today's Tavern Ball is the Legends of Azeroth are playing Clone Ball, your team with a random legend. Each is cloned 4 times, go get him, champ. Alright, so we do pick a hero, and let's go back and double check. Hunter, I think, would be a fine hero to pick. So let's do this. As far as what I got recorded yesterday, then the amount of recordings is 1 again. I did the master levels for Doom 2, which is a collection of about 20 WAD files that Doom files that aren't even really made by John Carmack or the people who made Doom 1 or Doom 2. They just are a bunch of fans that made plans. Ooh, I'm gonna take this. And then re-roll the other 2. And see how that works. Next legendary you play, and all your other copies cost 3 less. I don't understand this. The next legendary minion you play and all other copies cost 3 less. Okay. I can't do anything now. Doing Kel'Thuzad, though, and getting a bunch of copies of Kel'Thuzad on the field would be great, but I don't see how you get multiple copies of any legendary ever, even in this Tavern Brawl. I thought what it was going to do was either give me 4 copies of this one minion, and that was going to be that. But I guess that's not what's happening here. So I could give my opponent 2 bananas and play this multiple times, or I can just attack here in the turn. I didn't even look at all of the levels in the Master Levels of Doom, and Final Doom. While Final Doom is just 2 large collections of 32 levels each. They're all really cheap, lazy continuations or acquisitions of fan-made content. The levels get incredibly difficult because they're designed to be for people who have beaten all of Doom 2 on the hardest mode in the first place, and because the games are still making me motion sick, at least a little bit, I'm trying very hard to avoid getting motion sick. I'm barely spending like 30-minute spotlights on them, and even that's quite frankly asking a lot. So what does this do? This minion takes it instead. Interesting how. If I had 2 more of these, I guess I could do this and this. I'll see if I can do that next turn. So I still need to do a spotlight for Final Doom, and then I'm trying to jump into the reboot of Doom. Skipping over Doom 3, which is really the first real attempt to take the Doom series into something else. This, and then let's see. Guess we could do this, can't we?
Soldiers of the cold dark. Soldiers of the cold
Think that will work?
My hand is too full.
So yeah, it's odd that Bethesda acquired id Software when instead of just making more of their own games, when id Software seems to have originated that concept of business by acquiring fan-made Doom levels instead of really improving on the engine. And there is definitely a lot to be said about just how much the Doom engine could have been as big as something like Unreal or Unity in its day. And you know, in a way it sort of was, but okay. Do I want to play this? Or do I want to play this?
Behold the magnificent aerial command unit!
It also hits the enemy. After this attacks a minion, it also hits... Well, then I can kill this easily. I can go ahead and do this to kill that, which leaves us still fine. And I can do this, and this, and this, and in the turn. Let's see. Yeah, so Doom 3, I would argue, I didn't even get to play half of my concepts there, but good enough for me. Doom 3 is slightly of an interesting idea, but I just don't own it. And then the remastered version, Doom 3 to BFG, Edition probably should be the only version that you get, even though both are available for purchase. Because you're then spending a lot of money. Even buying the Doom Complete Pack, you're still paying like $15 if it's not on sale for what is effectively Doom 1 and Doom 2, and then a bunch of fan-made projects. Final Doom being the one I haven't spotlighted, but I'm really not doing much of a good job spotlighting any of them, other than to show, hey, this is what Doom was, and it was super popular, and then that's pretty much all I can say, or all I can move forward on is that yes, this was very popular, but in my personal experience, I barely played episode 1 in the shareware version of Doom 1, and then missed out on all the rest because Doom 2 was not shareware, and
I will fight with honor.
All the levels in Doom 2, I could probably beat Doom 2 if I wasn't getting motion sick, but I really wouldn't want to go through the frustration and effort of trying to play any of the master levels or Final Doom, because it's not canonically built into the story, and canonically the story doesn't really matter when there's a full reboot, although I guess there's a small I guess it's not a full reboot so much.
Job done.
See, whenever Secret is played, I don't think this would actually trigger that in the same way that this doesn't trigger that. It's weird, I know, but you would think some of these cards would work a lot better than they do. Okay.
For justice.
Attack here and see what this is. If it's a freezing trap or something. Doom 3 BFG Edition also has some modifications made to it, because in Doom 3 you can play specially modded versions of Doom 1 and 2, but they add crosses to the pills that you can pick up and remove all the Nazi imagery, which seems silly, because that would have definitely been something that they'd already dealt with. Like, there's really no need or reason. Yeah, see, it didn't trigger it. To
Reporting for duty.
There's no reason to kowtow towards censorship when you've already released your game as, yes, this is going to be a devil satanic game full of very little Nazi imagery that I see. So like there must be an enemy somewhere later on in the Doom games that's somewhat close to that, or maybe there's a symbol on the floor or something. I do recall there was something, but it's not like Wolfenstein where you're fighting Nazis left and right. Alright, so this guy's just gonna kill this character. Unless I have something that would bring it back, which I kinda do, but I kinda don't. So weird to censor Doom 3 BFG Edition. It goes to show that even when that game came out, which would have been somewhere, I assume, between 4 to 8 years ago, that already we had adopted this regressive approach towards what can be in video games and what can't. Also, I guess Doom 3 BFG Edition was probably trying real hard to target being on consoles, and so the consoles' concern over these types of things probably extended a little bit more. But the equivalent type action would be if somebody were to release GTA 5, which there's a story about GTA 5 today, selling like 130 million units or approaching that. Like, if somebody re-released GTA 5 and took out all the weapons and all the blood and all the violence, it's like, that was in the game, people complained about it being in the game, nothing came of it, the story's old, the story's dead. You're bringing it back into the news cycle at this point if you were to censor it out. Look at Saints Row 3, like, being a parody of GTA, now being released on a Nintendo console with little to no censorship compared to the main game. Maybe there is a little censorship in the main game, but I'd be surprised if there isn't a lot. Speaking of not having a lot, there's not a lot to do here, so I can just play a little bit of ranked, but also I'd just like to cover the news again. At any point here I could just lose my first wind and not get a second wind as far as energy is concerned, and just want to get really tired really fast. So we've got a game on Steam here called Board Quiz Adventure. It looks like it's a tile-based game of some sort. I can't really describe it any more than that. They're saying it's a party game. To me, it looks like it's a generic thing, and it's asking simplistic math questions as you're walking around to the NPCs. So it seems like not even using RPG Maker, but using some other pre-made assets they've made this game. And it's $4.79 discounted, English and French. I can't see anything particularly interesting in that though. Board Quiz Adventure looks like a boring game that I wouldn't really want to play. Even if that wasn't a digital game, if it was a real world game, that would be rather annoying. A board game where you walk up to certain spots and then get asked questions sounds a lot like Trivial Pursuit, just with some different coat of paint over it. And Trivial Pursuit is not particularly an interesting game that people want to play. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Cell-shaded sci-fi shooter Void Bastards launches on May 29th, 2019. Let's see, it'll be on the PC via the Humble Store and Steam. I don't think, well, I guess the Humble Store is a platform since they do release non-Steam versions of games. It's also coming to the Xbox One on May 29th. It's a trailer here, so I can look at this and see if there's anything in particular that there's worth mentioning here.
Job's done.
It does have a very slightly more cartoony look on it, in the feel of kind of a Borderlands, but I would say there was another game that was more cartoony in its graphic style. It's kind of like the Wolf Among Us art style. Let's see this turn. So if we look here, yeah, it's very, very cartoony. But I know, on top of that art style, you really don't know what this is or how detailed or in-depth this game is. This might be a game you play for 5 minutes and find interesting. It might be a game you play for 50 hours and find interesting. And of course, TechRaptor has the affiliation with the Humble Bundle store, and I don't have any affiliation with them, but I certainly have some admiration for them, for the offerings that they give, being able to donate to the charity of your choice, and give all of the money if you make sure all the money goes to that charity while buying a game is a pretty good deal, in my opinion. Much better than just your standard sale. That being said, the Steam Summer Sale dates have apparently leaked, and they've been consistently leaked and been accurate for several years. The reason that the summer sales leak and Steam doesn't seem to really care is because, frankly, Steam and Valve are terrible at advertising and like have no real PR department, and that was certainly one of the major problems with Artifact, is that the people developing Artifact had no real support as far as the PR team being given a budget specifically for this project and advertising that project and working closely with the programming and development team. No, it was the programming and development team was the only team working on Artifact, and if they had had more people assigned to the project, if anybody got assigned to any project in Valve, then they would have been able to almost certainly get more feedback and realize that what they were offering as far as pricing and as far as product, as far as Artifact is concerned, was not a deal that people were really interested in, and they should have gone back to the drawing board before they released, instead of releasing and then going back to the drawing board. But it's kind of interesting I even have to mention Artifact, because almost certainly I wouldn't be surprised if it's in some way discounted for the summer sale. Also, because the summer sale is happening, that gives a decent excuse for me to do a follow list cleanup, which I should do, certainly. I don't know if I'm going to get around to it or not, but it's something I will have to think about. It's something I've been thinking about certainly for about 2 months. Moving on, TechRaptor has another article. The Minecraft sale has great discounts on games and merchandise for the 10th anniversary. And quite frankly, I believe this is the first time Minecraft has been on sale in the 10 years that it's been out. So you can get the PC or Mac Java edition for $16.95, 37% off. You could get it for $10 for the Xbox One, PS4, or, well, the Switch is actually $20. If you want it for iPhone, it's $6.99, or Android is $6.99. There's no discount there. These all here are the Bedrock edition, I believe, the cross-compiled non-Java edition version. The Java edition is better supported for mods, but a lot of map makers decided to go over to the Bedrock edition because it has a storefront and allows people to sell their products, their maps, through that direct storefront. It's kind of an interesting choice, I would say, if you have kids that want to play Minecraft and they have friends who are playing the Bedrock edition, then get them the Bedrock edition. If you have kids that you just want to get into Minecraft and you want them to avoid that storefront and you want them to have the newest features, you get them the Java edition. There's a decent argument to say to get the Java edition and maybe the iPhone or Android edition. That way there's a cell phone version, and a portable version, and then a PC version. At least for the Bedrock edition, you would like theoretically to buy it once and get it in all places, but that's clearly not how it's being sold. There's also a few other things being on sale, but I think Minecraft is the game itself is pretty much all you should concern yourself with. It is also worth thinking that kids these days may not be so much into Minecraft, and they may have moved over to let's play a couple more games. They may have moved over to Fortnite or something like that, and so then they're not super interested in that. Lemon Lover's on the chat. He says, "Good morning, Rydo," and then a lemon emoji. Hey, Lemon Lover. Yep, good morning.
Uther versus Medivh.
I probably should stream earlier in the morning,
I will fight
particularly in the summertime. But yeah, consistency will claim to be the key for most YouTubers, and a key to success for YouTubers is not something that's within my grasp. With insomnia, certainly.
Checkmate. Well done.
I don't believe that school is quite out for everybody, but I suspect by the end of the month, all schools in the United States that aren't year-round schools will be at that point into their summer break. Not that I get very many kid viewers or viewers in general, and I'm not sure if I'm really even at this point targeting my content at all towards kids. Really am not. It's kind of hard to make that argument when you're doing these Hearthstone streams and talking about all the games that are coming out on Steam, and then once a week there's at least a few lewd anime game or two, at least a handful of them that I end up mentioning. Just gonna end this turn here. TechRaptor has an article here. The Humble Lego Games Bundle has been extended for another week. This is not something I normally cover because I usually talk about the Humble Bundles at the end of the streams. But it is kind of interesting because this seems to be the first time I recall that a Humble Bundle has been extended. And TechRaptor says yes, it's the first time they've ever seen a Humble Bundle extended for an entire week. So I wonder if this possibly means that they are
Let's move quickly.
that bundle in particular did not sell very well, which would kind of make sense because, like, I wouldn't directly suggest buying the Lego games on PC. I would much more suggest that they be purchased via used game store for Xbox or PS4. Apparently there have been a couple of other bundles that have been extended, but not by a week. Usually it's just by a smaller increment of time, by quite a bit. Redemption, this, and this, and attack. If the Humble Bundle store starts just extending all of their things and effectively just lying about the days that their bundles end, it would be a lack of credibility, most definitely. Something that I would irritate me and potentially can make me consider not using their service anymore. I really don't have any patience for some of these stores, particularly shoe stores, that have 50% off all the time, and what they're doing is they're marking 90% of their products as 50% off for 51 weeks out of the year, and then for 1 week they will have the regular price, and that is double. So they're effectively guarantee themselves no sales within that 1 week, so that they can claim it's 50% off for the rest of the time, which that sadly I imagine works. Let's see here. And here.
Reporting for duty.
I should have attacked that first. That would have made sense. That would have made more sense. TechRaptor has an article here. Samurai Showdown with no W. Seems like that's how it's always spelled. It has a release date announced, and the season pass is free to early adopters, which is an interesting offering, certainly, but fighting games with season passes still feel very unwelcome. Like, I don't think a fighting game needs a season pass at all. But if you purchase it before June 30th, you get the season pass for free. Pre-order the game on PSN, Xbox Live. Apparently it's not coming to PC. Let's see. Releases on June 25th for the PS4 and Xbox One. No price has been announced. So this could be a full price tag game, and I imagine it is. I wouldn't be surprised if this follows the trend of being a game that is actually rather expensive. Like the basic version may be $60-$70, and then the deluxe edition may put it up above 100. Samurai Showdown is apparently abandoning its old 2D art style that it once had, I'm fairly certain, for a more 3D art style, but I would say that 3D art style still doesn't look particularly great. I've certainly seen better. Samurai Showdown is a sword fighting 2D or 2.5D now game, whereas I guess its closest comparison would be the Soul Edge fighting series. I don't know if that's the name of the series or not, or if that's just the name of the sword. I remember playing games like Samurai Showdown on an arcade box once, and it was interesting looking for about 5 minutes, and was playing a couple of times, but certainly not something that I got to play a lot of or that looked particularly interesting compared to any other arcade game. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article here. The art production studio Daruva Interactive has been bought by Rockstar. The idea of Rockstar purchasing an Indian art production studio from Starbreeze probably is more of a indication that Starbreeze needed money and they got $7.9 million out of this. Rockstar is not likely to produce or release anything anytime soon, so they would either be working on just like advertisement work or art for the next GTA, or just art for GTA Online. I imagine that's really what they're making, is just skins and art for GTA Online. Let's see. Daruva was purchased by Starbreeze back in 2016 for $8.5 million, so they lost $0.6 million, $600,000 on the deal to begin with, and they're well known for their work on titles like Halo 5, Sea of Thieves, and Quantum Break. They also worked on Payday 2, which started rezoned.
I must move quickly.
So that there are somewhat known and accredited art company. So it doesn't seem like you can expect any kind of decrease in the art quality of skins for GTA Online. I just seriously doubt that, particularly since it's a art production studio alone, instead of a more complicated video game production studio.
I fight.
There's no likelihood that this means Rockstar is making a new game or speeding up production on a new game. It would be nice, frankly, if somehow Rockstar saw fit to kind of more speedily release a GTA. It doesn't need to be as often as there's a Assassin's Creed or anything like that, but it would be nice if it wasn't a long drawn out process, and if they could make a few of their other games that they haven't touched, or make some new IP, that would be great also, but not likely because Rockstar is very happy just running GTA Online, or at least they seem to be very happy just running GTA Online and running a game as service to make money instead of trying to do anything new or innovative.
For justice.
Got something to hide?
TechRaptor has another article. Valve overhauls the Steamworks overview and adds new resources. So yesterday Valve announced the release of some new resources for Steamworks developers, as well as an overhaul of Steamworks' overall homepage. The update aims to help developers and publishers to get the most out of each Steam release by giving them more power over Steamworks features. The new Steamworks homepage now details all the major features available to game developers via Steam, and adds some new documentation specifically exploring the features that can be used to help build an audience and communicate better with players via Steam. So effectively, this is they changed their webpage, with Steamworks being the web page and the website portal for game developers. The overhaul builds on the feedback from a quiet few, end quote, game developers that aren't aware of many of the tools and features available to them via Steamworks, which that's a standard response in general, is that we ran some surveys and we found that the people we surveyed didn't know about all of the features we asked them to know about. Usually this is because the features that they want you to know about are useless and unimportant. YouTube does the same to its creators, where it's like, well, why don't you know about the studio beta? Why aren't you using the studio beta? It's like nobody wants to use the studio beta until it's a finished product. Nobody wants to go learn about the studio beta when it's still a beta and could change at any time. All we want to know is how can we get our videos in front of people's eyes, and that's the one bit of information YouTube in particular doesn't tell its creators, is how do we make our videos succeed, short of just playing the algorithm and going for hate clicks and doing half of the things that YouTube tells us not to do.
I fight.
Moving on with the story though, sorry I went on a bit of a rant there. The update also addressed questions from game developers on how to reach the right audience for their games and build up to a successful reach. Valve has also put together a set of documentation to draw the attention to the marketing tools and features that Steam provides for game developers that will help them reach customers and stay connected through the lifespan of the game. Many of these tools have been part of Steamworks Suite for a while, but Valve acknowledge they haven't been good at communicating over the time. That's Valve in a nutshell. Marketing tools and feature documentations are available here, and there's a link. I suppose there is a bit of truth to the idea that if you are a small indie first-time publisher, game developer, and this is your Steam Direct debut, there probably are a decent number of tools on Steamworks. I've never been on Steamworks or anything like that because I've not tried to develop or publish a game on Steam. But this is certainly the right response to, because let's face it, there's definitely a point here where Steam does offer, maybe for a price, maybe for free, a lot of opportunities to advertise your game and get your game on the Steam front. Although I have said the exact opposite, so maybe I'm wrong on this actually. Because in the past I have said it really seems like Steam doesn't do any advertisement for games as much as it is just a storefront that is running a recommendation engine of games to people, and the only thing they really advertise are those front page ads that show specific AAA games usually, but they do let you have sales. They will work with you to run sales, but yeah, when you're on a specific games page, there's very little that pushes you to a different game, and there certainly is no outside of Steam advertising that I know of that Steam does. So here's the actual documentation, and all of this text is probably way too small, but apparently there's some pre-release marketing and release day marketing and ongoing marketing that they talk about here. And you can see there's just a lot of talk here, and this is a pretty large amount of documentation. I would say though, also there's a decent number of indie developers and publishers that whine about their game not being on the front page of Steam too. A lot of sour grapes that are jumping over to services like the Epic Store because they think that they can get better or that they deserved better, when from Valve's perspective and Steam's perspective they were nothing but a small indie developer that got the exact same opportunity as anybody else, and so there's, by improving the documentation, they can basically respond by not responding and ignoring a lot of whiners online that are jumping over to the Epic Store to get a quick buck. Normally those whiners would be small indie developers, but let's face it, Borderlands 3 is also an exclusive on the Epic Store for pretty much the same reason. I also heard a story that Epic, as a company, purchased a company that was making a free kind of open source, I would guess, anti-cheat tool for Linux, that because now Epic has bought it and basically shut down development for the Linux version of that software, it's now made it very difficult to continue to support Linux for people who are trying to do Steam on Linux. Now, that's probably not a big issue considering how even Valve is not really supporting Steam on Linux anymore, but it does go to show a potential instance where Tim Sweeney and Epic has specifically gone out of their way to just interfere with a project that Valve was working on, even though it really wouldn't have benefited them in any real way. Moving on, Tech Raptor has an article. Pokemon Detective Pikachu scores a record opening for video game adaptations. And I believe at this point it is also the most successful video game movie. Which goes to show that it has there is room to make adult-centered live-action video game movies still in a small amount. Box Office Mojo here is predicting $145 to $165 million, which means basically nothing in comparison to what you would get as gross income from a video game. Because 165 million, if we're taking 300,000 sales or 300,000 units, we're going to switch over to the European account since I lost there. 300,000 units of a game sold at $60 would be well, am I off on the number there? 300,000 units times 60 would be 60, 180, 240. Would be, I guess, $2.4 million. I definitely think more games have made than games make more than $2.4 million. So we have a challenge a friend on this one, so we're gonna hope that this guy will accept it immediately on the European account. Right, and we don't need to play Paladin always, so let's see if we can find something fun in the Shaman deck and play this. Maybe $165 million is a lot. I was going to try and make a point here. Maybe it is a lot of money compared to a AAA video game. Maybe it isn't. That would be a hard comparison to make. Let's see. The Tomb Raider starring Angelina Jolie comparatively only made $47 million. I guess it really is probably an apples to oranges comparison in general, though, because the production cost, as they're fraudulently calculated for movies, in my opinion, probably are way higher than the production costs as they are probably fraudulently calculated for video games. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that I'm just trying to compare two numbers here that won't make. So instead of editorializing, I'll just go back to Tech Raptor's article to mention, yes, the Pokemon Detective Pikachu is the best video game adaptation ever as far as making money, and that's, I suppose, something to be very proud of or happy for, although it may not mean too much of anything, because I wouldn't be surprised if that magic does not continue, even if they were to make a Detective Pikachu 2, because this movie very well may have just had an oddity factor to it, and once that oddity factor is worn out, there may not be anything else to say there. TechRaptor has another article. Discord hits 250 million users. So if Discord could get every one of its million its users to pay just $1 to them, they would make more than the Pikachu movie did. Of course, that would be asking quite a lot for Discord users. But that's what they're trying to do with their game storefront, which we've heard very little about. Discord has 56 million monthly actives, so 200 million of those people have forgotten that they have a Discord account. As somebody who set up a Discord place, I've really never gone back to it or done anything with it, and if anything, it feels like my small fan base has become less vocal and less active, not more vocal and more active. So I don't see why a Discord would really help
Unity,
too
precision,
much.
perfection.
In side story, I heard about Discord would like to be on the Nintendo Switch, but they would need to get Nintendo's permission, of course, and I don't think Nintendo would give them permission. The easy access to a uncensored, unmonitored communication app on a Nintendo console is what they're trying to avoid more than anything else. So that's why Nintendo's trying to do its own cell phone app companion for online communication. If Discord, I guess, can promise Nintendo that it would be heavily censored and monitored, so there aren't people preying on children on the Discord app or saying traumatizing, horribly inappropriate things to children, then maybe Nintendo would consider it, but I think you would have to promise a lot more than you could actually deliver in that case. I don't really need to do
I don't
anything
have enough mana.
here, so if I lose, I lose. Doesn't matter. Next story we have, TechRaptor says the World of Warcraft Classic launches in August and closed beta invites begin tomorrow. I'm not sure how much people really would want to go back to World of Warcraft Classic. I have a YouTube video of someone who I know played World of Warcraft Classic, and I was going to watch that, and so by Friday I may have some more information to say about that, but I imagine it won't be too much. Let's see. And he said dank in the chat. Or donkey, I guess, is what he typed, yeah. Which would be short for Dankeschön, which is German for thanks. Okay. I don't know how I would type you're welcome in German off the top of my head. So I only need to play Shaman. And this is back in an hour, so I may have to kill an hour before I can do the Tavern Brawl. Because we started so early. So is it really worth even playing the Shaman here? We could play a little ranked, why not? Yeah. I just don't think you're gonna get too many people to want to play World of Warcraft Classic. And then it's gonna become a weird comparison there too, is that because best case scenario, you get people to play World of Warcraft Classic and you try to push them to play the new World of Warcraft, and then they leave World of Warcraft Classic to play the new game. Or you have a bunch of people who hate the new game and will never play the new game, where the new content is being made and where you're trying to make new sales, and so then you're just having people play the same content over and over again. I guess since it's a monthly subscription or yearly subscription anyways, you could probably still make some money off of that, but if you can't really add any new missions or experiences or cataclysms or whatever it happens in World of Warcraft, you can't really do much. I suppose what they're trying to do is get new people to play both. Play the old one, then decide to play the new one. Or play the new one and forget about the old one. But, well, I guess 2019 in particular, with so many mediocre and disappointing games, 2019 might be the year to go back to something like World of Warcraft. It might be the year to go back to something like Hearthstone. But I think that there is a point in that people will have to realize that there isn't a lot of new games that people actually want to play. Still, I think there's enough new games coming out that people want to at least try them instead of playing something old. It's always going to be a very hard sell to convince people to play something older. Let's see. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Figment is now available for the PS4, and Creed Valley DLC is upcoming. So Figment is a surreal point-and-click adventure style game. It's a musical puzzle platformer, I guess is the description they're calling it. So I guess that's more accurate than what I just thought it was. New DLC coming in fall 2019. What I'm interested in is I'm fairly certain Figment is on more than the PlayStation. Fairly certain it's also on PC, so if it's on PC, then this is not mentioning that. It's also not mentioning whether this DLC would come to PC. So maybe I'm thinking of a completely different game, and I wouldn't be surprised if I am. Let's see, and if I tried to Google Figment, I won't get any results around the game. It's gotta be on PC. Go to the official website. Yeah, Figment is also from Bedtime Digital Games, which they're the makers of the game Back to Bed, I believe. Yeah, they are. And that was a game I covered and found kind of annoying and short. So, as far as this game, it's not listed anywhere. They've got like a Steam page, so I could come back to their Steam page and see, oh yes, it is on Steam. So it's rated very positively on Steam, so it's better than Back to Bed. It looks like Figment is probably a better game than Back to Bed, but no DLC here other than the soundtrack. So I kind of assume that they will later on announce that they are going to add this DLC to the PC version. Until that point, you might be wise to hold off buying Figment for the time being. That being said, like, there's really not a real reason why you would need to get this game and play it right now anyways. This is more of a hack and slash game than I would have thought it would have been, certainly. I'll double check and make sure this is either on the follow list or the wish list. Let's see. do this? Or are we trying to do that? Next we have a game on Steam called Mystic Rust Files. This is a Wolfenstein clone style game, low effort troll game for $2.99 in English only. So nothing more needs to be said about that. Get the health down. Next we have a game on Steam called Sumatra Fate of Yeti, which looks like it's a pixel graphics point and click adventure. Looks definitely like an old school game. I'm a sucker for point and click adventures, so I'll put this on the follow list, but it is asking kind of a high price at $6.29 for the level of quality here, even discounted. I'd have to check what the collector's edition is, if that's something important or not. You don't have full voice acting, which would be nice in any point and click adventure.
What to do?
So yeah, something I'll put on the follow list and see, but also wouldn't be surprised if I decided it was not quite quality enough. There we go. So we can win this next turn, almost certainly. Next we have on Steam a game called Beastie Cards, which looks like it's a mobile port of a card game. I got a little bored earlier this morning and installed a clicker game from like the top trending on the Android store, and within like 5 minutes I was already bored with it and uninstalled it within, I'd say, about 20 minutes. But yeah, that was, I knew I wasn't going to get very far in a clicker game in the first place, not with having arthritis in my fingers. That's something that was always going to be a non-starter. Konami also has an ad-supported Picross game called Pixel Puzzle or something like that. Just search for Konami on Android and iOS, I believe. It's free except for the ads that you have to watch or look at. But it is a bunch of some old school Konami characters that you're doing a lot of pixel puzzles to draw.
I will fight with honor.
For Doomhammer.
I did look at the entire trending on the trending and the top grossing field on Google Play Store, and it still very much feels like there is not much quality as far as the games that are coming out. So yeah, don't have anything new to say there, really. Mobile phone games still not doing a great job as far as quality. Right. Let's do that. Next we have a game on Steam called Deadly Path, which is a dark screenshot syndrome style game. Looks like there's probably pre-bought assets for a few deadly traps, and you're just walking to avoid these deadly traps, like spike traps, to escape. It's 99 cents with no discount. It says it has full audio, but I imagine it's not much really. And you can see that the interface icons are not very polished and look like they're from a mobile game. Somewhat with the back button. I'm just gonna. Start loading this next article. TechRaptor has an article on top of the World of Warcraft original coming out. They are discontinuing their Recruit a Friend program. So if they're getting rid of the Recruit a Friend program, I wouldn't be surprised if Hearthstone eventually deprecates and gets rid of their Recruit a Friend program too. I would also say that YouTube is getting rid of the related channels feature also, which I don't think anybody really ever used that. If you went to somebody's main YouTube page, on the side there, it would say related channels and they would just be randomly generated. It was potentially a small bit of information that you would get as a channel runner or a content creator, just to see who YouTube compares you to, but that's kind of all it meant. And we can see Saad Al-Malki says hi. Hi.
Not on my watch.
I wonder if there's possibly an internal reason why they would get rid of the Recruit a Friend program, but I assume it's just because Activision Blizzard has no money at this point and is being run by a bunch of accountants, is what the rumors are, and because of that they are just trying to save as much money as possible and shutter the company, give themselves golden parachutes. I think that's pretty much what it's gonna happen. And there's two ways this could go. Is that Activision could split in some way somehow from Blizzard, either becoming a independent company again, which maybe would be an improvement, or being a subsidiary of some other company, which might be an improvement, or Activision Blizzard as a whole corporate entity is just going to go under, or become, more likely they won't go under, they'll just be very much in a position where little to no new content is ever made, and they're just doing the bare minimum to maintain anything. And that would kill Hearthstone in particular, is if they weren't making new cards and new content for Hearthstone. I don't think too many people would stick around to play it at that point. Moving on, Gametsu has an article. Blood Bowl 3 is announced. The fantasy football game series continues. This is kind of surprising because I really wasn't expecting a Blood Bowl 3. Apparently this is from publisher Big Ben Interactive and developer Cyanide, and they put out a trailer of several games that they're jumping through here to show off really fast. And I hate to show an entire trailer, but in this case, let's see. Let's come over here and play a little bit, and then we'll come back to it. yeah, so I just need to play 14 more Shaman cards. Let's get back into it. So, get back to this trailer. Seems like Big Ben is making some sports games and making some other kinds of games. But it is quite the variety, and I don't recognize Big Bend. So there's a lot of tennis games and a bee simulator and Vampire the Masquerade. I would say Vampire the Masquerade in particular is getting a lot of coverage. I didn't even see the announcement of Blood Bowl 3 though. Like, I've seen at least three articles talking about Vampire the Masquerade, talking about different vampire clans that are coming out in that game, and it's just like, that's too much hype. This is too much hype train for me. When the game comes out, maybe people will be interested in it, maybe people won't, but let's wait till it comes out before we're getting article after article talking about it. I think it's really important to realize that Vampire the Masquerade is based on live-action role-playing minigame of pretending to be vampires. So it's the nerdiest of the nerds style of game, or at least it's based off a very nerdy game, and so it may not be what people think it's going to be, and it may just not be any good at all. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. SteamWorld Quest Hand of Gilgamesh is coming to PC on May 31st. I guess this is the game that first launched on April 25th on Switch, and so it's just making parody by making it to the to Steam. The SteamWorld series is this weird series of games that it seems like each one of them are different, and the subtitle here, Hand of Gilgamesh, seems to be the only game that is a SteamWorld Quest game. I guess what they're working towards is the idea that they will eventually have more SteamWorld Quest games, or at least they want to leave the door open. There's nothing terrible from what I've heard about SteamWorld Quest. I'm not sure that it's a particularly enthralling game enough to really want to play it. It definitely feels like one of those games where people will be hyped about it the first week it comes out, and then after that first week people will forget about it and just move to the next big thing.
Job's done.
Next we have a game on Steam called Space Station Continuum, which looks a little MS Paint-ish in the graphics, so it kind of fails the visual test immediately. It has a Kickstarter demo, and it's not out, but you can add it to your wish list. Apparently they've changed the layout a little bit here, because there wasn't a button to add to the wish list before. So yeah, maybe Steam is gonna move its buttons and its web pages around a little bit, but I wouldn't imagine by too much. I know Steam is theoretically in the process of working to revamp its interface, which is pretty old, and get a more modern interface. I wouldn't be incredibly upset if they got rid of the blue background stuff and went for maybe a solid white or a solid black, but I suspect that's more to do with branding than good web design. Next we have a game on Steam called Tanks vs. Demons, which has a mouse cursor on their video that they recorded, which just goes to show such a lack of interest and quality that I can't give any benefit of the doubt to this game. It looks like this game is a tank versus tank / Bomberman clone. It's $2.24 discounted. And yeah, that mouse cursor, which is on both videos, tells me a lot more than anything else on the screen. So yeah, I'm not gonna put that on the follow list.
Job's done.
Next, we have a game on Steam called The Grand Master. I guess we're getting back to covering almost every game. It says it's a free-to-play casual action indie game. It seems like it is basically you point a controller in different directions and hit a button to strike these ninjas that are trying to hit him. So all the action is really taking place here. So it looks like it's a cell phone port that's just at least done a better job at putting some slide art than most cell phone ports. But it has also got a grayscale black and white appearance to it, so it's not visually interesting. It's free to play, but then there's a ton of DLC here, and so it's not tagged in-app purchases, but there seems to be enough DLC to complain, certainly. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else that can be or should be said about it. Just ignore it. Move on. Gamatsu has an article here. The PC Gaming Show 2019 announces its first participants. Apparently E3 doesn't happen for another few weeks, which is weird because I would have thought that E3 was going to happen, well, not last weekend because that would have been Mother's Day, but I wouldn't be surprised. Was kind of thinking this weekend instead of 2 or 3 weeks from now. I still don't have the date solid because I don't think I'm going to particularly do anything or care too much about the E3 presentations. Dying over here. Let's see. Let's do this. 2 and 4. This. And this.
I don't have enough mana.
And this.
Job's done.
And in the chain. So, Epic Games, Chucklefish, Digital Extremes, Frontier, and more. So, this is in part being sponsored, the PC Gamer Show, by Epic Store. And so, I imagine a lot of games are going to say for PC, or they're going to say for the Epic Store as an exclusive. And you possibly won't hear the word Steam said at all during this presentation. It'll be presented by Sean Day9 Plot, which I guess I haven't seen him in about a year. Let's see. And we need to play 8 more Shaman cards, so let's just keep playing. Let's see. Gamatsu's article says the Epic Store Game Store headlines this year's lineup as a sponsor and will reveal quote brand new material for several games, including some exclusives coming to the Epic Games Store. So expect in the middle of the PC Gamer Show, which I think is happening the day after the Microsoft show, that expect it to there to be an announcement of several several more Epic Store exclusives that people will be upset are Epic Store exclusives. Otherwise, I don't think that there's really too much to expect to be at the show that's actually that interesting. I think it's worth definitely considering that most games worth playing on the PC will probably be on the Xbox too. Well, the Xbox also. So, yeah, those games will probably not be heavily highlighted on the PC gaming show. And that will probably leave their lineup somewhat minimal. I'm gonna go kill this for protection and then do that. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Speedrun Squad, which is just tiny MS Paint graphics in what looks like a Super Meat Boy platformer style game. 99 cents, English only as language. Nothing more needs to be said. Next, we have a game on Steam called Dommy Do, which seems to be a Unity asset flip game of dominoes. And really, I don't think there's anything more to it than that. It's just a domino game, and I almost would say that a domino game kind of makes sense at some point as a game, but it would frankly have to be in VR and or have just an amazing system. What I'm seeing now seems like it very easily could be just a Unity simplistic example program where you're placing the dominoes and running a simulation. And I've seen other games like this, and yeah, just doesn't look polished enough, quality enough to be put on the follow list. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Omega Labyrinth Life for the Switch launches alongside a censored Labyrinth Life for the PS4 on August 1st in Japan. So, I believe the censored Labyrinth Life is called the safe for work version, or safe to play in public version. Playable, it's the quote playable in front of others version. There's a considerable amount of content missing from the censored version, leaving it to be a boring dungeon crawler with really no selling points. And don't get me wrong, that's probably an apt description of the uncensored version also, but you are definitely getting left in the lurch if you have to buy the PS4 version. And this was a game that they specifically came out and said, because of the censorship that PlayStation is forcing upon them, it is expected to severely hurt their in their sales. And depending on how you describe it, Gamatsu is being, I think, rather generous by describing it, saying that both Omega Life and Labyrinth Life feature the same characters, character skills, monsters, items, and story in dungeons and difficulty settings, but they differ in terms of sexual content and expression, but they don't really go into full detail on what that means. Like the CG animations are different. the touch events, groping minigame, for lack of a better description, are taken out, left in the Nintendo console, taken out of the Sony console.
Job's done.
There's a OPI, which means breast, rock, paper, scissors system that has been completely changed. Hot spring events
Ooh, I wonder
that
what
have been
this
censored.
Protocol 7.
Yeah, there's let's see, I'm just going through all the notes here of just how much has been changed. Yeah, I need to play 4 more shaming cards. But yeah, the selling point of Omega Labyrinth Z was that it was a lewd dungeon crawler RPG. That was how it was designed, that was the budget it had. If you take all of that out, you just have a terrible game. And we've seen these style of terrible games previously being released on Steam and other places where it's like, oh yeah, this is the Western version that's missing all the parts that they would have been interesting. So yeah, it doesn't seem like Omega Labyrinth Z, or no, this is Omega Labyrinth Life, which is different from Omega Labyrinth Z. Omega Labyrinth Z was a different game, probably in the same series.
Job's done.
So far, it doesn't seem like Omega Labyrinth Life is coming to PC or coming to the West, so we'll see. It's being censored even in the Japanese release, which is really striking, and this is really irritating the video game developers in Japan that make these types of games. And these types of games actually do sell pretty well. And it brings about an argument that I could go on to, and a rant I could make certainly, about how you don't, when creating a product, create demand or change demand. If people want bread, you can't convince them to eat cake. If people want cake, you can't really convince them to eat bread. You can only supply your product and hope there is a demand out there, and inform a customer. This is generically what I hope is true. This is what I think is true. Not sure how I want to play this. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article. Nier Automata breaches 4 million units sold. So if Nier Automata, a massive AAA game, has sold 4 million units, and that was $60 for each of those games, because I don't believe Nier Automata has ever really been on sale, then that would be somewhere close to $240 million gross of income. Yeah, I think my math was right that time. Even just this year, they've sold more than 500,000 units. So Nier Automata doing good, and I don't think there's any new content you can add to Nier Automata. The only thing you can really do is put out an update and a patch, and I think that's probably a good idea, but less likely to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if they're under a decent amount of pressure to make a newer game in the series, but I'm not sure they actually are. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Issei Shima Mystery Guide, The False Black Pearl, is coming to PS4 this June in Japan. This looks like an 8-bit game. Let's see, it's a Famicom style, as in a, so it's basically an NES style command adventure game. Coming to the Nintendo eShop, or first launched for the Nintendo eShop January 24th. This is almost certainly a game that's not coming to the West. Let's move on. I'm still one Shaman card short. Next we have a game on Steam called Rifle Range, which is clearly a low effort asset flip Unity game. It's 99 cents with no discount, and English is its only language. That's all I need to say. It's actually probably way more than I need to say. Next we have a game on Steam called Little Savior, and then a bunch of Japanese looking characters. It looks like it is a port from something because of the side bars, and it looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter with poor quality graphics. You don't see too many Japanese top-down twin-stick shooters, so that's a little surprising, but everything else here looks pretty bad quality. It's $9.99, and it's English and Japanese only as far as the languages. Let's just go ahead and re-roll everything. Well, this next game looks interesting, at least.
Greetings.
On Steam, it's called Risk System, and it has a very unique, I would say this is early 80s, maybe even 70s anime style. It's a shoot 'em up game, so the actual gameplay is going to be played here. So even though the trailer is kind of deceptive, this really looks like a cartoon anime, and that's not really what the game is. $10.19. Let's see. English only, full audio. That seems strange. Let's look at this developer. Like, I'd never really play a shooter game. This is a game from a no-name developer. I guess you might argue that at this point, this animation style is so far from the anime moe style that's being done nowadays that a Western artist could take it back as their own, or take it as their own, and it might be fair. This art style does have something that's caught my attention, so I'm going to put it on the follow list and see if there's any response to this, if anybody actually buys it and reviews it, of course. The chances I'd buy a bullet hell shooter and actually play it is pretty low, but it has managed to catch my attention. I guess that's about all I can say. Seems like neither one of us are really playing too much. Next we have a game on Steam called Depth of Madness, which looks like an asset flip horror game, seems. It's free to play, or free in general, but it's incredibly unimpressive, so can't really say anything else about it. And there's probably enough here to have some games left over for Friday if I don't just burn through all of these. Next we have a game on Steam called Star Impact, which looks like a almost Donkey Kong Country style game. Yeah, it seems heavily inspired by that, and I think that makes me want to give it a chance. It does suffer a little from dark screenshot syndrome, and it does look like there might not be actually any enemies here in the game, or maybe there are enemies and I'm just not seeing them. $7.99. English full audio. Let's see. First game from this developer. I guess I'll be generous again and put this on the follow list. A Donkey Kong Country clone is not a terrible thought for a game. TechRaptor has an article here. Space Invaders, the board game, has been announced by Taito Corporation. Now, playing Space Invaders on a board game is probably 2 or 3 times more boring than playing Space Invaders in real life, and you could spend about 5 minutes being interested in playing Space Invaders in real life. Let's see. I don't think there's really anything else to editorialize on this. This doesn't look like much of a game. I don't think you need to introduce your children to Space Invaders by having them play board games like this. So I would really turn this one to being just unnecessary and an attempt at licensing a product that's very old. So there we go. We've played all the Shaman cards, and maybe an hour has happened now. Where the Tavern Brawl back in less than an hour. Nope. So let's just switch over to the Asian account and see if we can do the Tavern Brawl on the Asian account, and then come back and do the European account. Getting through all the daily quests pretty quickly, but also because I started earlier, that potentially means there might be another daily quest that unlocks for the European account, or I might not be able to roll anything. See, alright, so this is not, seems like the European and the Asian account reset their Tavern Brawls at a different time than the Americas account. Shaman or Warlock? We've been playing Shaman, so let's try a Warlock game. It's worth a try. Meanwhile, Gamatsu has an article. Closers for the PS4 launches May 22nd in Japan. Let's see. That would be a custom Warlock for Asian accounts.
You asked for it.
What this game looks like is a Persona style walking around game with well, it says it's a side-scroller action MMORPG. It will launch as a free-to-play via download. Guess I could watch a trailer or read more about the game here. So let's click this, and then I'll see if I can remind myself as far as what the game is all about. Alright, there's a trailer, pink-haired anime girl, and a anime style opening being shown. Apparently, yeah, it looks like a high action style Persona game with a lot of beat 'em up physics. Where Persona, I don't think has a beat 'em up physics. I think it has turn-based fighting. I guess the thing to take from here is it has a lot of poses and dances and stuff being free to play, and that information will probably mean that the game is pretty generic and pretty similar, probably not that interesting, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't come to the West at all.
Hello.
There was the Avengers Endgame movie, by the way, came out in Japan and failed to get the it really failed to beat the latest Detective Conan anime movie. So I don't know if that has anything to do with video games, but it does go to show that Detective Conan still reigns #1 in interest as far as Avengers Endgame. In all fairness, I think the love story in Detective Conan is probably better written than the star-crossed lovers story of Captain America and his leading lady interest. That being said, I haven't seen Endgame, but I've heard it's perfectly fine and pretty good, actually. Moving on back to video game news. Gamma Sutra has an article. Square Enix founded RPG development studio Isotolia closes down following the cancellation of the project that they were working on. What was the name of the project? Studio Isotolia started in 2017 under former Tales of producer Hideo Baba. So Baba departed both Isotola and Square Enix last month to make room for the next generation. So people were fleeing what now seems to be obviously a sinking ship as far as the
Flesh fails.
try this. I'm getting distracted and not finishing my sentence. Put this up. So yeah, there was at least 2 or 3 major people who left Square Enix, and now we see that there's more reason to suspect more people will be either laid off, fired, and more studios might be shut down from Square Enix, or more people might leave before that happens. The game that they were working on that was canceled was a fantasy RPG called Project Prelude Rune, which almost certainly would have been a similarly styled game to the Tales of series, which have been moderately popular, it seems. So yeah, that's more bad news for Square Enix. And I would say Square Enix and Sony, to a much smaller extent, are kind of so far the only 2 major Japanese companies that have shown any weakness so far. Whereas we've seen a lot of other worldwide companies feel like they're close to bankruptcy or having a lot of layoffs and just having a lot of trouble. I suspect we will hear from more Japanese companies having trouble. Perhaps a little bit later, perhaps the Japanese conservative mentality includes their accounting and their announcements also, which might mean that they just are going to take a little longer to admit that they're in bad financial situations. I didn't play that right, but whatever.
My shield for Argon! My shield for Argon!
See, I should have played that first. Kill that. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. The romance visual novel collection Akagi Kimi to Ishoni pack is coming to the PS4 on August 29th in Japan. So we're still very in the middle of this situation where visual novels, even romance visual novels, are scheduled. They were in development. They were coming to the PS4 because until very recently, like today, it was announced that the Switch has outsold the PS4 now. But until that point, PS4 was the biggest console, and there really was no competition as far as PC or Xbox. Xbox is a joke. But I wouldn't be surprised if this series in particular actually has no scenes in it of any lewd nature and has been heavily pre-censored so it can be sold on the Japanese storefront. And I also wouldn't be surprised if this game isn't particularly unique or interesting. I haven't heard of it, but quite frankly it would be very easy for a visual novel to be new, and that's why I haven't heard of it. Even if it is a collection of older things, it's particularly if it's not been translated or turned into an anime or some other form of media. Alright, we won with our Warlock game, and we might as well just stick with our Warlock game. Next we have a game on Steam here called Iron Marines that people are actually streaming right now. The developers are streaming. Looks like it's a real-time strategy game. It doesn't look very unique, man. Let's see. Is there a justification or reason for me to even give this a follow? It could be great. I guess that's my reasoning, is that it might be great. I have not really been considering real-time strategy games that are new as far as games to cover. I'm still in very early stages of thinking about covering things like Red Alert and the games that are on Steam that are older real-time strategy games. But I guess I'll give Iron Marines a chance and follow the game. This is from a developer who's made the Kingdom Rush series, and those are rated positively, so I think that earns them at least consideration there.
I wonder.
Play this.
Try this time.
In return. Here's the GameIndustry.biz article. Nintendo Switch sales past PS4 in Japan, but it is off pace for the DS and 3DS, which is to say it's not selling as well, as quickly as the DS or 3DS, which probably is not a big concern to anybody at Nintendo.
Crystallize.
Do I want to discard a card just to kill that? I don't think so. If the Switch continues to be successful. I would not be surprised one bit if we start to see fewer and fewer games being PlayStation 4 exclusives or even coming out to the PlayStation 4. And I don't see how the PlayStation 5 successfully changes that scenario. Because when you're having a issue with the company, it really doesn't matter.
Crystallize.
How many do we have here? We have 7 on the field.
Spectacular.
So next turn I could probably kill one and play this. Yeah. I don't see a lot of new business happening with the PlayStation, particularly in Japan. And I think Microsoft has managed to mostly not irritate its developers. Let's see. Moving on, this is a surprising article from TechRaptor. Survios announces The Walking Dead Onslaught in partnership with AMC. So what is this? Is this a board game? Is this a video game? The Walking Dead Onslaught will be an extensive narrative campaign with endless scavenging scenarios, visual real motion combat, melee, and player progression with 48 weapon packs. It uncovers a new narrative arc in The Walking Dead where you can play as your favorite survivor of the TV series. The game will also unveil new technology called progressive dismemberment, which sounds like you'll be able to shoot off a lot of limbs. Interesting. Let's see, it will first be available for home VR, then arcades. So it's an arcade game, basically a VR game. Well, potentially if they put money into it, which AMC doesn't really ever do, that could be an interesting idea or concept, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty boring and just a generic on-rail shooter style arcade game. Let's see.
We are one.
It's a little surprising that they would even try to make another Walking Dead game, and this seems to be in partnership with AMC instead of the owner of the comic book, Skybound Software, I believe is the name of that company. By the way, Netflix is going to be pushing more games that they think they can develop. Well, I assume in a similar way to the Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode and the well, I guess that's maybe one of 2 interactive games that they've made themselves and not just ported. So Netflix will be at E3, and unless they're going for something crazy, I am not 100% sure that what they'll be doing will be too interesting. Just go ahead and draw some more cards. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. The Beat Saber release date has been announced and the price increase and level editor is arriving. So, at this point, if you want Beat Saber, you probably should buy it That being said, I hate when there's a price increase when a game comes out of early access. Usually because it comes out of early access and it really isn't adding any content at all. You can get it at the Humble Store or or the Steam Store, or for PlayStation VR. Beat Saber probably is one of the best available VR games, which is really just a sorry statement on the quality of VR games that have been made so far. Okay. Just gonna hit that. And that. And that. And kill that. And draw a card. And I should have drawn the card a long time ago.
Job's done.
In return. I don't think I'd ever get Beat Saber though, because I just don't have any rhythm, nor any interest in really having VR. Playing a VR game. It would also be impossible to do as a streamer, to play a lot of those games. Well, all the songs theoretically are supposed to be out of the YouTube Content ID system, but that doesn't stop other people like Jimmy Fallon to claim they own the musical soundtracks, which is exactly what happened. Jimmy Fallon played Beat Saber on an episode of his show, and then they Content ID'd everyone else who had played the same audio from that Beat Saber level. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz, Tencent adds a gameplay management, quote-unquote, system to PUBG Mobile to, quote, encourage, quote, healthy gaming. Players under 18 will receive pop-ups reminding them to take a break. This is almost certainly to avoid the Chinese government from forcing them to do even more draconian systems, which probably won't even work. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if China comes directly out and says PUBG Mobile is banned and or just forbidden for anybody under 18 in general. I wouldn't be surprised if they ban all video games for anyone under 18. And there's a story that will follow up that claim later on. But right now we have a TechRaptor article. Moss free DLC and exclusive Oculus Quest content has been announced. Moss being a kind of interesting looking VR game. From what I've heard, I believe this is one of those games that only works in VR and becomes really boring and simplistic if you try to take it out of the VR elements. Apparently I still need to play a little bit to get to the Tavern Brawl, so we'll keep on playing. So while you can purchase Moss on Steam, it requires virtual reality headsets. And the reason I think it becomes really boring is because it is very limited in what you see and how you see things and how you interact and control things. But it is rated very positively, so if it is getting more DLC on the Steam version, that's cool, but it might only be exclusive to the Oculus standalone visor, the Oculus Quest. Well, that didn't last very long, so of course that wouldn't have changed anything. Just hop back in here. The Oculus Quest is being described as a potential console version of VR, where you're middle of the road as far as the price of VR, but you don't really require a PC or installing software and fiddling with software. Although PlayStation VR would also arguably be the cheaper console version of VR, so I don't know how the Oculus Quest succeeds here unless it partners with Microsoft or something in some weird way. Let's see. Taunt. And then this. Next we have a game on Steam called Rigid Chess, which seems like it is just a slightly low effort Unity asset game. It is chess. I don't know if it's even programmed with any AI or rule enforcement, but yeah, the graphics don't have any consistency or polish. That was clearly some background art that's just been bought or stolen potentially. I don't know. It's $9.99 in English only in the language, which is weird for a chess game because why not, make it compatible with many languages. It's not that hard to translate the small amount of text you would need on screen. Rigid Chess just does not have the visual polish to go to the follow list. So, destroy a friendly minion, add 2 random lackeys. Let's go ahead and do that. Kill that. That worked nicely. GameIndustry.biz has this article, what yesterday's EU court ruling means for the game industry. Companies are advised to start acting quickly or face legal trouble once the ruling is implemented. I have no idea what this court ruling was when I first read this, and I'm like, what did they rule? Because I have heard zero about this, and I didn't completely log off the internet yesterday. I should have heard something if it was a big ruling. So what this is that yesterday the ECJ ruled that employers in Europe must set up a system to track the daily working hours of the staff. The decision is an effort to crack down on unrecorded overtime and properly enforce the EU working time directive, which restricts employers from making staff work more than 48 hours a week and grants at least 11 consecutive, as in connected, hours of rest every 24 hours. Which it would certainly be kind and nice if there was a similar law and ruling in the United States. Unfortunately, there most definitely is not. But it seems like their working time directive was a toothless law until this point. So now they must track the daily working hours of their employees and stop implementing crunch theoretically. Let's see. It certainly will be a while before any company was actually taken to court and sued for potentially violating the tracking part of this ruling, and while GameIndustry.biz is being pretty melodramatic about it, I wouldn't be surprised if a significant number of companies simply ignore this ruling completely and get away with it for a very long time. But it certainly is a step in the right way, right direction. Like, it'll be a matter of eventually just international politics that companies will be forced to limit the number of hours employees are working. The fact that you can overwork somebody in a third world country for 22 hours a day, 24 hours a day, no rest, is an incredible unfair advantage in a grand scope to somebody who is trying to a company, a first world company that's trying to give a higher quality of life and enforce reasonable work hours while still maintaining an economic influence. Of course, that dangerously gets close to an economics rant, and I think I'll try and avoid that today, since we don't have that much time. Let's see. TechRaptor has an article here. Bachelor's Degree Center shares the best game designing courses in 2019. Let's see what they say are the best game design courses. Let's see. They also provide a ranking of the best online programs. According to these criteria, the best game design program in the US for 2019 can be found at George Mason University. The second is at the University of Cincinnati, and the third is at the University of Baltimore. This is based on a ranking of the fastest, most affordable, and best overall. Take note, there's no Ivy League schools being listed here as far as I can tell, and no big names. This is not Full Sail getting mentioned. This is not it is not DigiPen getting mentioned, both of which are specifically focused on video game programming classes. I would also say that getting a degree specifically in video game programming is a bad idea. Get a degree in just programming in general. Let's see. Game art and design and development degrees could easily just be art degrees, design degrees, and development degrees. Let's see what their best online programs are according to them. According to them, the best online is George Mason University, University of Cincinnati again, University of Baltimore, Lewis University, Linwood University, University of Advanced Technology, Southern New Hampshire University, Davenport University, Franklin University, and Liberty University. Savannah College of the Art and Design, Rasmussen College, Rocky Mountain College of Art and Design, Middle Georgia State University, Baker College. So yeah, that's definitely not big name Ivy League. It's not big name Ivy League courses by any means. Do we have a demon we can kill?
Almost out of time.
So this is an interesting resource. I would also say mention that if you have not kind of heavily leaned into some form of game development before you started college, you've probably not put enough investment into it, unless your school just had no computer programming electives and no art electives or no sound music classes electives. Like, there's something there you could have taken. Well, we can do the tavern brawl now, so let's take this and we'll just play Hunter again. But that certainly would have been a list that I would have been very interested in looking at as far as online classes and colleges to go to that potentially would have had good game design classes. Of course, back when I was thinking about going to college, then I would have also very likely been they wouldn't have had those kinds of classes because that would have just been too niche. And you still can't deny that the game industry sounds like a horrible place to work, so I don't know anybody in their right mind would want to actually get into that mess as a full-time career. Moving on, Gematsu has an article, Guilty Gear XX Accent Core Plus R for the Switch has a launch trailer. Guilty Gear being a 2D fighting game, I believe. Yep. And they're going to show any actual gameplay. There's a lot of characters. So, 9 game modes, a lot of 2D fighters. That's certainly where I come from when I look at the most recent Mortal Kombat game and say, man, does that feel like it's missing a lot of characters. So yeah, that looks slightly interesting, although I wouldn't want to play that fighting game on the Switch.
I move quickly. I wonder.
Let's just play this in return. So TechRaptor has an article here, follow up to my suspicion that China might ban all games for any and every reason. China bans blood and use of the word kill in video games completely. So anything violent is basically getting banned at this point. And this won't be a simple matter of changing the color to green either. Blood or anything that looks like blood is now wholly stopped. So it's not. So it's just got to be completely censored out, and the idea of killing has to be censored out. So there will be a lot of games where you're still pointing a gun or a gun-like object at people, and they just won't bleed, and then they'll fall down on the ground, and perhaps they'll even animate them with a sleeping sound effect or a snoring sound effect to say that you're shooting tranquilizer darts or something.
My hands is too full.
I don't see how this is not somewhat predictable. It seems like that this was where that was going.
I wonder.
Always.
Consume you.
Guess this works next turn. So I'll just end the turn here. You could potentially argue that this banning has something to do with the US-China trade war, and that they're just trying to hurt the mostly US companies that make video games, although it would only be a slight majority of US companies make video games compared to the rest of the world, and that those statistics might be completely wrong. I'm just guessing. But I think this was probably already in the works before any kind of escalation in the trade war. I think this is just simply exactly what they had always planned on doing, is just implementing a extremely soft ban on video games so that there would never very few to no games would ever be actually allowed to be for sale. And so it'll be interesting to see if we see more Chinese games showing up on Steam because of this, or if Chinese companies just decide to go out of business completely. And then we see less terrible Chinese games on Steam, which in the long run, even a mediocre Chinese game developer could someday aspire to do something great and actually succeed at it. More voices in the conversation are not really a bad thing, ever. And the idea of the mixing pot in the United States of different cultures and ideas and such coming together in a worldwide game development thought isn't a terrible idea either. So I feel a little bad for Chinese companies trying to just run their business. Moving on, Gematsu has an article. Castlevania Anniversary Collection has an update to add the Japanese title variants. So previously, a bunch of Castlevania games up to the one Castlevania game that people really would want to play, which would be Symphony of the Night, had been announced. Now it seems like let's see, Castlevania Anniversary Collection will add the Japanese title variants of each game included in the collection with a free update shortly after the launch, Konami has announced. So they're not really adding any games, they're just adding the Japanese variant, the Japanese ROMs, basically. Which is kind of ridiculous.
Quickly. Job done.
My hand is too full.
So I guess that's probably a promise that they needed to make so people would not be irritated about getting the wrong version of these games that are incredibly small and probably just ROMs being run through an emulator. Moving on, TechCraft has an article. The Swedish Consumer Agency is investigating loot boxes, as more and more companies are investigating loot boxes in general. Might be interesting to see where some of these Korean and Japanese games go if loot boxes just become banned in all of Europe and possibly even the United States. If they start losing a significant amount of their income sources, perhaps they would drastically change some of the games that are alright to play now, but maybe make them even better by getting rid of the loot boxes and all the grind that is added to games to encourage people to buy loot boxes. Let's see what this does. The game I'm playing still, Destiny Child, if it got rid of all of its loot boxes, well, I guess it doesn't really have loot boxes. Well, it kind of does. If it got rid of its gacha game mechanics, it possibly would be a more interesting, better game, but it also very well would just lose any reason to exist at all, and they might just shut it down. There are certainly a lot of people that seem to be unhappy with the global version of Destiny Child being very greedy compared to the Japanese version and the Korean versions. Moving on, GameIndustry.biz has an article. Take-Two investors are re-rating the games business. It's still in the entertainment business, reminds the CEO, Strauss Zelkner. I believe he also was quoted by saying that he does not believe a Netflix for video games would actually succeed. There's a quote here: "We are still an entertainment company with a release schedule. That means our results will be reflective of that." And that's barely a quote, quite frankly. Take-Two is the people working, I believe, and they own Borderlands, but maybe that's 2K. Maybe Take-Two and 2K are the same. Here it says there's no Red Dead this year, but Take-Two does have a strong lineup for the year, headlined by Borderlands 3. The last game sold 20 million copies and still has 1 million unique players every month. So Take-Two is hoping that Borderlands 3 is a big success for them. Is there possibly something I could do that would help me win a tavern brawl like this? Just maybe gain more armor, get more health. Yeah, if Borderlands flops terribly, I don't think Take-Two goes bankrupt or anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if Borderlands 3 is the last game Gearbox makes in the Borderlands series regardless, and I also wouldn't be surprised if Take-Two sped up or slowed down the production of Borderlands 4, which they probably haven't started production of at all at this point. Let's see. Battlecry, choose a friendly minion, had a golden copy. Well, at the end of your turn, cast a spell. Cast this turn. Interesting. So this will cast the same spell again. Nice. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article. Get a Job, Qualcomm is hiring an experienced environmental artist. This is in San Diego, California. This is interesting because I have no idea what Qualcomm is developing. Like, why would Qualcomm be making a game? It would almost certainly be a cell phone game. But yeah, I have no idea why they specifically would be making a game directly, since Qualcomm is known for being a chip maker, and definitely a chip maker more than anything else.
Free of that blasted tower!
Specimen.
Free of that blasted tower!
Here we go.
Time waits for no one.
So now if I can cast one spell
Behold!
3 times at the end of a turn. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Delivered that looks like a low effort, yeah, it looks like a Zuma clone. Yeah, Zuma, I think it's Zuma. Early access for no reason, $4 about for discounted. English as its only language. Yeah, definitely nothing impressive there. Let's see. This.
Such a perfect specimen.
And then this. And then this. I figure he saw where this was going real fast. That is a tavern brawl that definitely feels like if you get the upper hand, there's no chance that you're going to lose, or very little chance you're going to lose. So we open this pack, and I imagine we're going to dust all of this. Oh, there was a Ingress anime, Ingress being the walking game before Pokemon Go, on Netflix. I tried to watch it. I watched the first episode, fast forward through that, fast forward through the final episode. Its animation was terrible, which is often very typical to a Netflix funded anime, is that they pay too little or hire the wrong people, and it seemed rather ridiculous, the idea, because it was integrating the cell phone game into a sci-fi story that there was very just crazy anime style anime story. I'm describing everything as anime here more than I should, but yeah, it didn't look good. And of course, I'm not a huge fan of Ingress in the first place. I never played it or anything like that, but if you were going to take the general concept of a game where you walk around areas and you capture specific areas for the Resistance or the Enlightened, you would probably get the cell phone aspect out of that completely, and you would turn it into a isekai, another world style game where people are actually fighting over the specific areas, or you just take the general idea of it and you move from that. It seemed like they had to be very specific to not portray the Resistance or the Enlightened as the bad guys, and I think because they did that, they left it in a weird position. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. Pokemon Rumble Rush has been announced for smartphones. They were going to announce a new Pokemon game. Let's see. It is an Umbrella developed strike action game which launches as free to play with in-game purchases soon. What does that mean? Fast-paced gameplay on the go. The islands and seas explored during your adventures change every 2 weeks. Upgrade your Pokemon of your choice. Test your strength by using the Pokemon you collect. So that seems to me like this is a gacha game of sorts. You're going to get random drops of Pokemon, I imagine, and you're going to be able to train them up and build them up a little bit, but probably not too much. And I imagine then it is just going to be player versus player fights in many of the events, and there'll be several other events. Looking at these screenshots, this looks like a training event, although this might just be an endless runner. This looks like this might be training. This looks like this might be training. It looks like this and this and this are actually fighting. Although this might be discovering a new Pokemon. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is designed to be really expensive style game, and it doesn't look particularly good graphically, even for a cell phone game, which is a slight concern. If we do this, and if we do this, and then I'm just gonna do this. I want to play this next turn and gain 10. Well, no, I won't gain 10, will I? After you play a minion, summon a copy of it. Let's see.
Time waits for no one. For the wild.
What does this do? 6 health to a damaged character at the end of your turn. Let's see. Next we have an article, Gamma Sutra. GTA 5 is nearing 110 million sales worldwide. So, yeah. That puts us in this middle point between 300,000, 1/3 of a million being a good amount of sales for a AA, even single A game, and the best selling game potentially ever, which I think GTA is. GTA 5 is selling 110 million. So we shouldn't expect to hear any numbers larger than that anytime soon as far as sales. 110 million, paying probably $60 for that. You're talking $6.6 billion dollars just sitting in Rockstar's account, really not being used to hire employees, really not being used to do much of anything. Alright. There we go. GTA 5 came out in September of 2013, so it's been out for 7 years, but yeah, 110 million is a big number, certainly. It's also been 7 years though, so why isn't there a GTA 6? That's a very valid question to ask. Okay. I've got nothing I can play.
For the wild.
Next we have an article from Gamatsu, Little Friends, Cats and Dogs and Cats, Welcome Home trailer. I believe this is a Switch game that's coming to the eShop. Yep, and it's like the Cats and Dogs game before, perhaps not from the same developer. It looks pretty interesting, certainly if you're a kid that can't have a pet for allergy reasons or some other reasons. Certainly an idea, although I am sure it really in no way replaces having an actual pet. Next we have a game on Steam here that's all in Japanese, and it looks like a low effort feudal battle simulator. This I would think is a cheap Chinese knockoff if it weren't for the fact that this looks like Japanese symbols. English does not support. This is $19.99. It is Chinese only. Interesting. I guess I've lost the plot on the difference between Japanese writing and Chinese writing. Let's see. Let's do that. course, that game is not going to make it to the fall list since it doesn't support English. Next, we have an article from GameIndustry.biz. Profit and revenue down at Paradox as investment reaches a record high. Q1 2019 performance is characterized by a focus on long-term growth and expansion, says the CEO. What did Paradox... This would be Paradox Interactive, wouldn't it be? What did they release in Q1? Let's see if it says anything. Damage or charge? Let's see. GameIndustry.biz says, while Q1 saw fewer major game releases, its slate of expansions for existing titles performed above expectation. The Man the Guns expansion for Hearts of Iron 4 sold more than any game's previous expansion during the same time period, a trend repeated with the expansion for games like Europa Universalis, Crusader Kings, and City Skylines. Okay, so Paradox Interactive is that developer and making that kind of games. Alright. We can do this. Do this. We can get rid of that. I don't think that's relevant news. It's not relative news either. Here's the GameIndustry.biz article written a little bit better. Employers must track staff working hours, EU court rules. Ruling to help uphold the EU work time directive should help tackle industry crunch problems. And we shall see, I suppose. Let's see. Next we have a game called Escapees, which looks like a low effort, ugly platformer of some sort. $24.99 with no discount. It's incredibly expensive. Third party ULED also. Yep, that certainly has not made me want to purchase that game. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Run Gun Die Ultimate, which looks like a top-down twin stick shooter game with dark screenshot syndrome. It's $8.49 discounted, English only as language. And I know these pictures aren't loading, but quite frankly, it does look like an asset flip game, and yeah, there's just nothing there impressive. I may have a little bit of... If I can figure out a way to win here. Let's see, what else would I possibly do? We'll try to priest and healing. That might help. Might have a few games here that are going to be left over for Friday. We haven't had one of these in a while. On Steam, we have a game called Elemental Girls, which is seemingly a collection of girls or elements personified as anime girls in a slide puzzle format, and in kind of somewhat risque, but not even that risque clothing. This is selling for 59 cents discounted. it clearly is a low effort achievement game with 32 achievements. It's an 18 plus art book and a hentai DLC for 99 cents to put in the real porn. That's certainly a different way to sell it, I would say. Let's see, we can try that one and hold on to that. But yeah, we haven't seen anything actually tagged with nudity or sexual content, I think, today, but I wouldn't be surprised if some come out by the end of the week. Moving on, Gamatsu has an article. AI The Somnium Files has been delayed to September 17th in North America and September 19th in Japan. I think I remember hearing about this game, but it, as seems to be typical with Japanese games, it does seem like it is delayed. Most Japanese games do seem to be way too ambitious with their release dates. Let's see if we can see if any of these screenshots will load.
This one turned out nicely.
There we go. Finally. So here's the screenshots for AI The Somnium Files. Seems like it's pretty well animated, but I'm not 100% sure what kind of game it really is. Seems like it's maybe a mystery investigation style murder mystery game, as best as I can tell. Yeah, sci-fi murder mystery is what it's being described as. No, I wouldn't be surprised if there actually is very little motion in it and action. Let's see. There we go. So I'll double check to see if this is on the follow list. And yes, they definitely have changed this. Planned release date, September 17th. The game is planned to unlock in approximately 4 months. Add to wishlist now. Okay.
I don't have enough mana.
Play this. And play this. And then do this. And then here. Next, we have an article from Gamatsu. The Metroidvania Mabel in the Wood is coming to the Xbox One, Switch, and PC this summer. This looks not particularly great visually. Let's see if I watch the trailer a little bit. Yeah, that's not impressive graphics. We could be exceedingly generous here and skip over to the Steam page, but yeah, I don't really see anything here. I could put it on the follow list, but those graphics do seem to lack a lot of polish that I would want. I would say for a Metroidvania, it also seems like you go into quite a few different areas. But I feel like I'm putting things on the follow list now that are not even out yet, so that seems like a mistake. Oops. I beefed up in my list. Was going to cover this article, Gamatsu's Famitsu review scores for issue 1588. I'll just quickly show the games that were reviewed. Panty Party for the Switch, not reviewed particularly well. I didn't think it was that good of a game. The Way remastered for Switch, I haven't heard of that one. But yeah, I don't want to spend any real time on that because truth of the matter is we don't really have time for it. And if I don't get this Tavern Brawl done by the time I'm done with all the news, I'll just do it off screen. Gamatsu has an article, God Eater 3 version 1.30 update now available. It adds new story missions, new origami, NPC allies, and new assault missions, new character customization, costumes and accessories, and various balance adjustments. God Eater 3 is the game that came out a while ago, July 11th, and it is easily, in my mind at least, confused for Code Vein, which is the Bloodborne continuation as far as a Bloodborne style game, where God Eater is the anime style of more anime monster fighting game like Monster Hunter.
The menagerie is for guests only.
Yeah. And I think God Eater is probably the lesser relevant of the two games between it and Code Vein. But both are probably decent choices to play.
The future is clear. Your demise.
It's a little hard to play God Eater, I would say, because of the fact that it's just not... Oh, I don't know how you say that. Well, God Eater 1 and 2 are not easily playable on PC in particular. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Adventure Dream Team, which looks like a Bullet Hell Bomberman clone of some sort. It seems very, very busy with a lot of flashing lights and lasers. English language is not supported though. It's $5.99 Chinese game. Does not look particularly interesting, and of course being Chinese only, I can just leave it.
Predictable.
Next we have a game on Steam that's a bunch of Asian characters called Cyber Driver. Seems like you're flying a flying taxi, a la The Fifth Element, although it seems like it's basically black textures as for the walls and the ceiling and the floor, which makes it feel like an extremely low effort game. It's tagged as early access for 59 cents and says it supports quite a few languages, which is different from what we have been seeing, but certainly it's kind of nothing there that's worth reporting on. I guess if I play this and then play this, well, this will just do random spells for each spell you've cast. So theoretically, this would do 2, and then this would do 4, and this would do 6, or maybe this would do 8.
Just in time.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Underwater Abyss Survival VR. I'm sure that sounds really unfun to be underwater in a VR situation. It doesn't seem like you're really underwater and drowning, though. It seems more like you're in a you're more in a situation where you're just playing a first-person shooter game in an underwater environment, fighting against humanoid sharks and other monsters. This is $2.99 discounted for VR, which is too cheap for a VR game. And quality-wise, it looks like it's a cheap VR game too. So I don't see a reason to put it in the follow list. Yeah, I'm desperately trying to get through all this news and win at the same time, and I'm at crossroads here. Alright. This, 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 this.
The future is clear. Your demise.
Yeah, I just lost, didn't I? Probably could have done something different, but I didn't. So I've tried Druid, I've tried Priest. Let's go back to Hunter, I suppose. Next we have a game on Steam that's just a bunch of Asian characters. This one's tagged Nudity Adventure RPG. Looks like it is just a cheap, probably Chinese if I was to guess, visual novel. Reason I think it's Chinese is because this is a screenshot of a completely empty background, and I've only seen that in Chinese games. It's $1.19 discounted, and yes, it does say it's full audio for Chinese only. Yep, I don't know why they're so proud of their empty backgrounds. I could only speculate maybe Chinese people don't get a lot of opportunities to be in an empty area since the population is so dense, and thus they appreciate that. That's blatant speculation on my part, but I guess that might be the case. Next we have a game on Steam called Night of the Shrub Part 3, if there is a Part 1 or Part 2. I'm uninterested in those parts as I am uninterested in this part because it's just not animated in any way that I would appreciate. This looks like a weird webtoon animation style. It's $1.99. It's very well maybe based off a webtoon, but since I don't recognize it, I have no interest in it, frankly. Alright. So if I play this, that would be get it down a little bit. So I can do this, I guess. Just in the turn. Here we have a Gamatsu article, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 details the Torador clan. This is an example as far as I was talking about just hype articles. They're gonna have an article talking about every single Vampire the Masquerade character or clan that exists. And we really just, we know the game is coming out. We know the game is not coming out anytime soon, so they just need to manage to make the game happen, and then once the game happens, that is that. Excuse me. By the way, I'm looking at this animation on this trailer, which is slightly not safe for work, it seems. and it's a very simplistic animation that does not really inspire major confidence as far as what Vampire Bloodlines the Masquerade Bloodlines 2 is going to look like. But the animation on that trailer also is probably nowhere close to what the game looks like, because it doesn't look like the previous trailers. So almost certainly it was done just as an advertisement piece. Nothing else.
By the power of Ragnarok, I have the power!
Choose a friendly minion and add a golden copy to it.
Such a perfect specimen. Such a perfect specimen.
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. Ready your wallets. The Steam Summer Sale 2019 date has been leaked. It's apparently happening at the start of June 25th and lasts for 2 weeks. The rest, if that's correct, it will run till July 9th. The summer sale, it has been traditionally the big sale. The question will be, will it have a mini game like the Saliens of last year, or will it just be a straight up sale? If it does have a mini game, that might get you a few more trading cards. I'll probably, in the sale, spend too much money on buying games to get trading cards, or buying trading cards for no reason. It's not like, other than it's just expanding the number of friends I can have on Steam, which I don't really need. So I probably, I'm gonna probably, if I can have some self-restraint, I think I'd like to see myself not spend anywhere as much as I have in the past on trading cards, and just try to buy games that are actually on the wish list. The whole point of doing the follow list and the wish list cleanup was to limit myself down to games that I actually want to cover and I actually want to own, and we're in a pretty good position there, where I could just buy some slightly newer games, slightly more expensive games while they're on sale, instead of buying a bunch of smaller or older games. There's no indication, just because the date leaks, what games are going to be on sale, but I would expect to see maybe as much as 60% of the entire Steam lineup on sale. Alright. This. And then this. And go ahead and kill that. TechRaptor has an article. The new ESA CEO and president aims to turn crisis into opportunity. This is probably a interview with, I assume, GameIndustry.biz. Let's see, what we're excited about here at the ESA is being able to shine a light on the great moment for video game industries. We are the benchmark in American culture and American economy when it talks about job creation, innovation, and creative expression. I could go on, but this clearly is just a fluff answer, which is pretty much what you want from a lobbyist group, is just fluff answers. And I imagine every single response here is completely devoid of any substance or any actual talk of any actual action. So I'll just say you can go to the TechCrafter article if you and read it yourself if you're interested. Because I've lost interest halfway through saying that sentence. Alright. Add a copy of all your Battlecry characters. See how this works.
The story deserves a new ending.
Okay. So I can do this, but I'm still gonna probably lose. Next we have a game on Steam called Dan Cop Daniela on Duty. This looks like this might be just an RPG Maker game. Seems like they're saying it's a puzzle game? A stealth puzzle game? Has this developer made anything else? There might be something here to this. This does feel a lot like Die Hard in a puzzle game format. It's $5.59 discounted. English full audio. I'll put it on the follow list and see if anybody reviews this. But that's pretty much all I can say. I'm gonna give this... I'm gonna do something crazy here. Let's try Shaman. And this will be our last game for the stream. Let's see if we have anything I need to say about this.
For Doomhammer.
I'm looking at the Google Ads blog talking about the new features that they've given to people to make Google Ads, YouTube ads is what they're talking about specifically, and Google video ads in general. And it seems like they're giving some features that very possibly would have been beneficial for them to give to everybody. Game of Sutra has the same article. Valve breaks down different tools for marketing games on Steam. There's no real, I think, relevance to that right now. Or no reason to talk about that. In direct competition, I would imagine, with the Steam store, TechRaptor has this article. Prepare your wallets for the first Epic Games Store sale. Now, right now, the Epic Store basically has, like, it feels like 9 games. So I don't know what could be really on sale except for Fortnite items and maybe Fortnite V-Bucks, I guess is what that currency is, I think. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. If you sign up for two-factor authentication, as they suggest, you won't be able to get to $10 store credit yet. Let's see. The Epic Games Store sale is in the works, but it hasn't been launched yet. So, I imagine, I wouldn't be surprised if it comes out the exact same time that that the Steam store happens. and there's really no competition there. Bias as aside as possible, the vast amount of games you could potentially get at a Steam sale compared to getting every single game available on the Epic Store. You're barely gonna get maybe 30 games on the Steam store.
Warriors of the frozen
Gamma Sutra has the same article. Nier Automata has shipped over 4 million copies, a far cry from GTA's 5's 110 million copies, but still quite a lot for a Platinum game specific Japanese centric niche weird game. I think most game developers would be more than happy with 4 million sales. TechRaptor has the same article. Square Enix shuts down Studio Isotolia and cancels Project Prelude Rune. This is, I guess, a screenshot from that game that was in development. Alright, play this.
Warriors of the frozen waste.
Do this.
Rise.
And this.
Will consume you.
The end. The house come.
And destroy a minion, your hero takes damage equal to its health. So I could take 12 damage by killing that guy if I wanted to. I don't know why I would want to though. Gamma Sutra has the same article. Square Enix founded RPG dev studio Isotolia closes down. Same article. So we're burning through the same article over and over again because this was just breaking news, I guess, when it happened. So this next story is a little laughable. Gamma Sutra has an article: Epic Games to receive the British Arts Films Theatre, British Academy of Films Theatre and Arts Special Award for contribution to game development. Now, it kind of makes sense that Epic would get this award for the Unreal Engine, but frankly, right now is probably the worst time for the BAFTA to give it to them, because they are also very arguably hurting game development and hurting the industry in general with their Epic Store and the Epic Store exclusives. This is questionable, certainly, because it makes me wonder if it's pretty easy to smooth your way into a BAFTA award, or rub elbows with the right people to get one, or just pay to get one, because right now Epic in particular is rolling in cash, so I wouldn't be surprised if they could just pay to get that. Here we have TechRaptor with the same article: PC Gaming Show, Epic Game Sponsorship, Start Time and Lineup. Let's see. Here's a list of all the developers that will have something to show there. None of these are going to announce anything amazingly interesting or special. Let's see, we got a Epic card in the pack. Pretty sure we have a complete collection though of all classic cards, so getting classic packs now really is just a translation directly into Dust. But having more Dust is greatly appreciated. So we've done the Tavern Brawl, we've done the Daily Quest on everything. I have 2 more articles and then that'll be the end of this stream. So we have a Gamma Sutra article here. Epic bolsters the Unreal Engine with Twin Motion acquisition. let's see, a real-time visualization solution of Twinmotion. So the Unreal Engine is going to get better. The Unity engine also acquired a company that was going to make it better eventually, slowly. But I can't really complain too much about this acquisition. It doesn't seem like it's anything other than just an effort to make the Unreal Engine potentially run better, which is good for everybody. Every developer. Gamasutra has an article, Take-Two CEO subscriptions are not a quote foregone conclusion for the game industry. We're open-minded, we want to be where the customers is, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that the subscription service will be as massive for interactive entertainment. And I think that is very possibly true, considering how even if you were subscribed to a Netflix of video games, I don't think that immediately means you have the data bandwidth to play video games as much as you could stream Netflix. Let's see. There's no new video game bundle on Humble Bundle, so I don't have anything really to report there. And since I started early, there almost certainly are some new tweets, so let me go to my Twitter feed and look and see if there's anything that absolutely has to be reported on, or if it doesn't have to be reported on, we'll just talk about it on Friday. Starting early basically meant we ended early, and we did do 3 hours here, so it's not like the stream went any shorter. It did line up, I guess, really right at the 3 hour mark, but so maybe it's 10 to 20, maybe even 40 minutes shorter. But we got all the news covered. We didn't break it up into episodes again. I need to get back to doing that every single time. And yeah, I'm just scrolling down my Twitter feed, and yeah, it does not look like there's any new news that came out while I was streaming. So we have a nice quiet Wednesday. I succeeded somewhat because in the back of my head I thought I was going to have to drink a 5-hour energy drink to just stay awake long enough to finish the stream, and that didn't happen, so that's good. So maybe now I'll immediately go to sleep, but not too bad. We got the stream done, and now I can move forward with the day doing whatever I need to do. That's it for the stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist, both of which would be very helpful, particularly as the Steam sale is coming. If you want to friend me on Steam and then gift me a game while games are cheap, very, very helpful. If you wanted to support me through Patreon, right now I'd probably actually have the money in a bank account I could use it from by the time the Steam sale happened. Thank you for watching. Have a good